Hello, good evening, very welcome everybody to your lesson 7 in your Diploma in Graphic Design, part 1 of this course. Good to see so many joining us again this evening. Quick shout out, guys. You know the score. Give me a quick yes. Crossed us as Stephanie out there straight away as well. Okay, guys, so like I said, don't forget the next lesson, lesson 8. Brilliant lesson anyway, but of course we'll be giving away that lifetime membership too. So today, guys, lesson 7, we're having our introduction to typography. It is a huge area of graphic design, everyone, and it's vital to your graphic design education without a doubt. And even the last couple of years has come on leaps and bounds, and I know people even specialize. So we'll start with the basics, guys. What is typography? Okay, very simply, it is the quite simply the art and technique of arranging type, as you can see there. But it's been wrong. You see, somebody has considered how the letters, how the sentences, how the paragraphs will look in order for it to be read by us. And we can even make people feel a certain way when we look at it. Now, sometimes it's done well, other times it's not. So it's up to us as graphic designers. We are the ones deciding how it will look, whether it be in our brochures, on our logo. So believe me, the better we are at this, the more effective our designs will be. Now, why is typography important? Okay, well, what is graphic design all about? If that is your want. And then, we can have a more traditional or take a much more modern approach then as well, depending what we're looking for. We can even make it look more feminine or even look more masculine as well on the other side of things too. So like I say, it is very, very important. I say, we are living in a more and more visually driven world. So even sort of non-designer, regular people can see a difference between well-used typography and thoughtless use. Would you agree with that? Give me a yes or no if you think, you agree with that. Yes, short attention span, says Nicole. Of course, yes, 100%. Okay, of course. Because type has a personality and it makes an impression. As I said, in the same way colour and shape can even evoke an emotional response, good type makes a difference. Alright? So in this less visual communication. Okay? But before we continue, just a few little things that I want to clear up first, alright? I'm going to get some of the, I suppose, some of the technical jargon out of the way first, okay? Now, even designers I know are even still a little bit unsure of the difference between these two. What I'm talking about here is typefaces versus fonts. Sometimes they're both terms used for the same thing. But think of it this way, it's pretty straightforward. A typeface is actually a family of fonts. Like you can see on your screens in front of you there, this is Franklin Gothic. So this is the existing in relation to everything else. So even if you think of a really well designed room and how it makes you feel even to walk through it or just even be in it, okay, if it's well designed, everything's going to be in proportion, everything's going to go together seamlessly. So there's a feeling of comfort as you walk through it. So guys, the same principles apply across all design, so bear that in mind. We're going to go on now and we're going to talk about the basic forms of our type. Okay, so we'll go through the basic forms, learn how to distinguish between them, and then after that we're going to learn how to combine them then properly as well. So these are the basic forms. The two basic forms are serif and sans serif. Now these will each have their own classifications or everybody see where they're distinguished from? Everybody can see where exactly they're coming from. Yeah, okay, the little bits there, yeah, okay, little feet and things. Okay, just a second. Great. Line or finishing strokes at the end of their characters, okay? They're evident in both capital and lowercase forms, by the way, as well. But just to bear in mind, guys, even the angles of those serifs can vary slightly too. And this is where we get into our sort of sub-classifications that we'll talk to now in a second. So the actual angles of the serifs can vary, their thicknesses and their widths can also vary. Now, you might be saying to yourself, oh, come on, these are little tiny, minute details. But trust me guys, it all matters, because it matters when we set it in suitable sizes for reading, and it matters especially then when we're learning how to combine our different typefaces. So once you're aware of these, you will be able to combine them better and essentially guys become a better designer. Now, an example of like I said, I talked there a second ago about the differences in the angles of our typefaces. So, within our serifs now, we have two more subcategories called bracketed and unbracketed. Anybody spot the major difference here? And I'm not talking about thicknesses, by the way, guys, even though there is, of course, quite a drastic thickness there, difference. But can anybody differences of the serifs on the screen there in front of you? Get Damien is there through curved as well. The angles, exactly, guys, exactly. Put it this way, our bracketed have a very much of a curved angle. When we talk about our unbracketed then, and again, these are sort of members of the family of our serifs, they have a much sharper 90-degree angle. So that's how we distinguish what we call our bracketed serifs and our unbracketed serifs. And again, this will become clearer as we progress through the sort of history of type through the ages now as well. So, once everyone is clear on that, then another little subcategory again of our serifs is our slab serifs. These are becoming quite popular, actually. I've noticed very much so over the last couple of years, and they're exactly what they sound like. The only difference is with these guys is that their horizontal and their vertical strokes are more or less the same width, okay? They're either exactly the same width or else a very, very little difference. But as I said, I've seen these becoming extremely popular again in advertising over the last couple of years too as well, because they do sort of go through types of trends in design too. But you can see they are brilliant for advertising because they have that nice, strong presence there as well. And an example that you would see day to day of this too, for all our computer users out there, would be, for example, the IBM logo. Okay, this is for any font nerds out there or typographic nerds. The typeface used here is actually called Men in Blue. That's MENINBLUE, Men in Blue. Oh, just a little piece of extra information there for you. But here you can see slab serifs in use. Okay, so we're going to continue on now with our serifs. There are we're going to continue on, excuse me, with our sans serifs. But everybody clear there now on how to recognize our serif typefaces? Yeah, just making sure everyone is clear before we continue on. Yeah, a couple of people asking. Someone asked there what font to use for a vintage logo. If you're going vintage serif typeface, depending on the logo itself as well. But if you're looking for more of that traditional feel, your serifs will definitely give you much more of a traditional feel there as well. So if we understand our serifs, our sans serifs are pretty straightforward. As the name suggests here as well, as the name suggests, these are distinguished essentially by lack of serifs. So sans basically means without, so without serifs, simple as that. In French, sans means without. Now, these guys only became popular around the 19th century. So, believe it or not, they're actually considered quite modern as a result. As I said, they've no little feet, if that's what you want to call them, and sans means without in French. A lesson I learned quite to my detriment quite a long time ago when working as a touring musician in France, and we decided to stock up on some beer at the local petrol station. Little did we know that all the beer we got onto the tour bus was sans alcohol, or labelled sans alcohol, which of course meant alcohol free, which we did not like at all. But anyway, so that's how I learned that sans means without in French. Okay? So there we go, guys. These are the two very, very basic types of classifications. Again, an example of sans serif you would see every day would be the Google logo. Again, this one is the actual typeface used here would be a version of Futura. They actually come up with their own custom font, but they sort of worked very heavily off the Futura typeface there as well, for anybody wondering about that one as well. Okay, so there are basic forms. We're going to go through the classifications of those now in just a second too, but now just be able to distinguish our serifs from our sans serifs. Basically, those little feet is the main thing that you need to consider. Now, okay, just a second. So, moving on. Another term, okay, we've covered the term typefaces and fonts. Just one other term now that I want to make you aware of, because as good graphic designers you will hear these terms used quite a lot as well. So I just need to make you aware of these before we continue. We have text type versus display. Is there such a thing as a slab sans serif then? There wouldn't be, Anna, okay? There wouldn't be, again, because going against it, you wouldn't have your little feet. So these then, if you don't have them, they cannot be of the same thicknesses, if you know what I mean. So your answer is basically no, okay? You could, of course, have a much bolder typeface, which would look quite slabby, but it wouldn't be a serif then, okay? So text type versus display. Your body type, it's your text type. It's to be used and designed, by the way, and you'll understand why this is important as we progress through this lesson. It is to be used in large quantities, so lots of it, but in small sizes. So think of any newspaper articles, magazine articles. It is set in what we call text type. Be easy to read, so smooth reading is of course the goal of it. Should be effortless as possible to read. And a quick one for you guys as well, good typography should nearly go unnoticed. If the user starts sort of quizzing it or wondering about it, then essentially your design is starting to fail a little bit. But things that are common in what we call text type would be open spaces between the letters, quite a tall body type in comparison to the capitals, and we'll discuss those now in a minute too, and it's sort of a medium weight. Now, some of the most popular typefaces that we see today have been around for hundreds of years. The reason they are and are still being used is simply because they still work. So if you think of any typefaces like your Garamond, your Calsons, your Baskervilles, these have been around for hundreds of years and we're still using them because they simply work. So guys, just to reiterate, text type, usually 8 to 10 points or maybe a little bit more. They are designed to be used in large quantities at small sizes. For A type. Now, this is usually sort of 14 points or larger, and we'll discuss measurements in just a minute now as well, but for a type, we're talking about point sizes. So this is usually around 14 points of large. Larger type, from things like handwriting to space age to whatever you like. But just interestingly, one thing to remember too is that text type, which is your smaller type, can function as display type. So you can increase the size of your text type to function as display type, but it won't work the other way around. Think of this, display type is like the icing on your cake. So display type is like the icing on your cake that you add after your design. All right? Okay, so again, just before we continue on, is everyone clear on the differences now between our text type and our display type? Am I clear with everybody there? Yes, 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 okay, okay. Now nice and clear with professional ones, it will actually state what sizes they work best in. So some ones will work better at text type and some ones will work better at display type. So like I said, just make you aware of that. All right, now we're going to get into the fun part of things, guys. So we've gone through all of the sort of jargon, I guess. Now it is time to go through the classifications. And this is quite interesting, guys, once you get into it. So I'm going to introduce the basic categories of type. Because basically, with a better knowledge of these classifications, it's going to help you decide on the typefaces or the best typefaces to choose for your products. So we're going to quickly go through the ages essentially. So we're going to start way back around the 15th century here. And this was the type classification of choice at this style. It's basically called old style. All right. This was based, by the way, guys, around the 15th to 18th century. And again, guys, refer to your toolkit notes as well for more information on these. So for all your toolkit people out there, they should be in your area right now. So do refer to your toolkits for more information on all of these classifications too, folks, okay? So this is essentially old style. Now, very easy to distinguish because it has sort of low contrast between the thick and the thin strokes. So quite low contrast between our thicks and our thins. And we have, of course, then what type of, have we got bracketed or unbracketed? What would I call this type of serif here? Gives a heads up, am I bracketed or unbracketed, guys? Of course, I am bracketed because it does have that little angle there. Okay, quite a shallow one, but it's still, the angle is there. Another quick way to distinguish them then as well is they have got quite long what we call ascenders and descenders. Now we look at the parts of the anatomy of type in just a second too, but they've got quite long descenders which drop below the baseline and quite tall ascenders which of course rise above our X height. Don't worry guys, these terms will be clear to you in just a minute too. But that's a simple way to distinguish them. So that's old style, like I said, up around the 15th to 18th century. For anybody wondering, the one you see on your screens in front of you is Garamond, good old Garamond, an oldie but a goodie, but still in use today. So we're gone from old style. Now we're into transitional. And the name sort of makes sense, guys, as we're progressing through the ages too. Transitional basically bridge the gap between old style and modern. Now these occurred around the mid 18th century, and they basically came about simply due to advances in printing and in font making technology. Again, the example you see here is Georgia, one of my favorite typefaces to use. I think it's a lovely, lovely typeface. So this is Georgia that you see. But here you will see the difference. You'll see much sharper sort of flatter serifs, okay? Obviously much sort of tighter bracketed curve then as well. And you'll see, oh yeah, just to make you aware too, guys, I want to make you aware of this. Okay, this little guy here that you see, it's like an imaginary line, I guess. Okay, this is an imaginary line that's connecting the thinnest parts of my O. So on my O, I have an imaginary line. This is called the stress axis. And the stress axis in our transitional typefaces is essentially quite straight. It's not really at an angle like our previous one. This is a stress axis, excuse me, and it's quite straight as well. And again, you'll notice then as well, guys, much more higher contrast between our thick and our thin strokes. So even on my A here, it's quite a thin, and when I go round, then it gets quite thick then. So much higher contrast between those, all right? Okay, so that's our transitional. And once I go on to modern now, you'll see exactly where this is going as well, folks. You'll see exactly where this is going. So once I progress on to modern now, for example, of our serifs, these occurred around the late 18th century. Dido or D dot, depending on how you pronounce it, is the example you see in front of you. And here we have, guys, extreme contrast then. Extreme contrast between our thick and our thin strokes. Of course, then we have that sort of ultra thin unbracketed serif then as well. All right. Just a second now, as well, question there from Anna. The serifs seem to be angled and non-angled, so is this still bracketed? No, there will always generally be an angle, okay? So even if it's only a very fine angle, Anna, okay? So our if you look at the example here, which is modern, okay, these definitely have an unbracketed, because see, it's perfectly straight, that sharp 90-degree angle, okay? So that is the difference, just to make you aware. Of them. Use of advertising. They look good and strong, they had a good strong weight and strong presence, which was brilliant for advertising. And as we discussed, we have that unbracketed square, okay, that unbracketed serif then, and again, sort of either no difference between our thick and thins, or you know, either if there's none, it'd be very little at least. Okay, so that's the differences. By the way, people ask me, what's this font? This is Rockwell, so Rockwell. So let's have a look at all those together. So let's have a look at all of those together. Okay, someone asking there, where would the Wild Wild West style fit in? Okay, well, depending on what it is as well. Essentially a display, but these take on many different characteristics as well, guys, okay? There would essentially be there was a lot of slab going on there, but more of a transitional style as well, because this was the popular one at the time, all right? So let's look at them all then, guys. Can you now see... Can you see sort of a pattern as we progress from the 15th century all the way up to around the late 19th century, or the late 18th century then, excuse me, late 18th, 19th century up around here? Can you see where the sort of history and the progression has brought us through to, yeah? I mean, maybe I'm just, you know, like I said, a self-confessed typo nerd, but I do find this quite interesting as well. And because when you can see it in front of you, the progression through time and why they evolved as well, more often than not for advertising, such as the times we live in, I guess. But I do find it quite interesting. So there you can see. So we go from our old style, where we had sort of less stress between our thick and thins, transitional, a little bit more. Modern then, obviously much more contrast. And then finally on to our slab serifs then as well. Okay? Okay, brilliant. Modern is very deco there, says Icarus out there too as well. Indeed, indeed. Okay, so everyone happy with that before we continue now, guys? Just everyone would essentially be a script, which we'll get to now in just a second too. Now, so let's keep going, guys. We were up to around the late 18th century there with our with our serifs, excuse me. Even I'm getting them mixed up, so you'll forgive needs of advertising. So these are sans serifs. There's just three basic types here, guys. You don't need to stress too much about this. So the three basic types are grotesque or gothic, either or. We then have number 2 will be humanist, and number 3 will be geometric. A little bit more difficult to spot the differences between these guys, but if you pay attention, you will spot them. Our first one then is our grotesque or gothic. Okay, I'm going to give a gold star to anybody out there can tell me the screen in front of them. I'll give you a hint. It's basically the granddaddy of sans serif typefaces. Any ideas on this one, folks? See who's paying attention out there? Century. Okay, Rachel is through there very quick with Helvetica. A few Century Gothics, a few Arials coming through, which is, not far off, but good. They're granddaddy of our modern sans serifs without a doubt. But here we go, guys. The differences here. Quite slight variations. Again, quite interestingly, you can see the progression. Very slight variations this time in stroke width. The letters are quite wide. Okay. And even then, throughout the years now, again a little bit more, we have what we call our humanists. Now these are quite interesting. Actually, most Apple products now, especially on their newer iPhones and things like that, will use humanist typefaces on a lot of their products. The reason they do this is because it's been proven that we as humans actually find these the easiest to read, especially in small sizes, alright, especially in small sizes, because they basically take on a sort of a form, believe it or not, of our serifs in that sort of handwritten style as well, but obviously made them into their own then with the sans serifs. But they're a little bit sort of what I call calligraphy. Interesting, like I said, Apple have actually created their own humanist typeface. I think they call it San Francisco, actually, if I'm not mistaken. I'm not 100% on that, but I think they call it San Fran. But that's the one that they use on most of their Apple products, on the newer Apple products as well, guys. Because we as humans tend to find our humanist sans serifs the easiest to read on screen and in small sizes. It is simple as that. Basically, the reason behind that is that they have quite open forms and they lead the eye horizontally. They lead the eye horizontally around, making them, as I said, the best sans serifs for long reading in small text. Okay, so just to make you aware of that. Okay, so that's our humanist. Our last one then, guys. By the way, this is Myriad. The typeface here is Myriad, which is on everyone's machines as a standard font, I think, no, guys, or standard typeface, excuse me. But this is Myriad that you see on your screens in front of you. Now, just a second now as well, guys. Okay, just sorry, one technical thing here. That's fine. So, finally then, moving on, we have our geometric. I mean, you can imagine why they're called geometric, guys. Any ideas on why this particular classification is called geometric? Most people can see it, really, can't you? Yeah, of course, because they're based on geometric forms. Either circles, squares, triangles, whatever it is. You can see it in them, guys. I mean, very, very much based off circles and geometric forms. Then these came about as a result of the sort of modernist 20th century movement. Okay, so in the 20th century, these guys came about to reflect that sort of modernist movement in design. As I said, the example here is Futura, so F-U-T-U-R-A, again, quite a popular one. That was developed back in around the 1920s, I think, actually. Paul Renner, no, not Paul Renner, sorry, I forget his name, it'll come back to me. But he's the guy that invented the Futura typeface here. But you can see there, guys, very circular. Like I said, it could be any sort of geometric shapes. It could be square-based or triangle-based either, just to make you aware of these. So let's have a look at all those three guys put together now. Again, you can see that transition there as well, guys, okay? Can everybody at least sort of make it? I know it's, like I said, in the sans serifs, not as easy to distinguish, but you can definitely see an evolution as we progress through there, yeah? Okay, good, good, good. Yeah, excellent, excellent. Okay, brilliant. I'm just going to take a quick sip of water, guys, and we'll be back to you now in just a minute. Thank you. Brilliant. So one just seems like a hybrid of the other two. Indeed, indeed, indeed. And quite an interesting one, like I said. Now, so just to make you aware, because there were some people asking me there about different types as well, or what classification they would fall under. So we've looked at the major serifs and sans serifs categories, how we can organize them and identify them and classify them. I mean, again, maybe it's just me, what I love to do myself for practice. Let's actually just look at things like movie title sequences, maybe of your favorite series, things like that. Try and figure out what typefaces they're using. Like I said, it's just good practice, guys. It's just good practice. So, a few other typefaces that we will be quite familiar with. Somebody was asking me there, where would, for example, Comic Sans fall under? Comic Sans would fall under, whether we like it or not, as a script. Okay, it's essentially a sort of a based on handwritten letters. These are scripts. Okay, this one you see in front of you would be called Snell. Okay, again on most people's machines. Can be quite difficult to use because they're either sort of mostly or partly attached, a lot of them as well. But like I said, they could be either formal or informal. So this is quite formal. An informal version of this would, whether you like it or not, be Comic Sans. But these can be a little bit tricky to use, depending as well, because of the large swashes at the end. Okay, so can be a little bit tricky too. Of course, you can, of course, edit these in Illustrator or your application of choice too after the fact too. I'm going to throw it out there, guys. Would this be an example of a text or display? Type text or display, whichever thing. It is, of course, display, guys. It is, of course, display. Used at large sizes and used sparingly. So, of your other typeface classifications, they would generally be classified as display. That was set down in a really low, 8 points. It just becomes much, much more difficult to read. Okay, and an example we see every day would be things like Old Spice, like you can see in the front of you. Any other examples of what is the font's name? It is Snell. Mary is asking, Snell, Snell, which should be on most people's machines too. Any other examples? Type of script, Kellogg's I hear out there as well. Yeah, lots. Okay, you're getting the idea, guys. You're getting the idea as well. Brilliant. So, one final one now, just before we continue, because we do sort of deal with it quite a lot, or we at least observe it on a daily basis, is what we call black letter, sometimes called fracture as well. Basically because they look sort of fractured or broken, because each letter is made up of individual strokes. So they also tend to be heavy in appearance. Alright. Okay, because obviously with all those strokes, they're quite close together, they will appear quite black, alright? Sometimes this can be called Old English as well, guys, just to make you aware. But you'll see tons, endless font choices out there, and it can seem a little bit overwhelming, but if you look at them with a more educated eye after today's class, you will develop a better awareness of what to look for and what suits your particular needs. Okay, and for example, the black letter examples you see every day would be especially in sort of newspaper headings as well. Sarah's asking, is that part of the Gothic family? No, it is not, although it could be described in appearance for the untrained eye as Gothic. No, this is black letter or fracture, not part of the Gothic or grotesque family. These are the clear champion there, says Mary out there as well. Indeed. Jägermeister uses this. They do, Candice. Yeah, it's like angry calligraphy there as well. Yeah, okay. Brilliant, guys. Okay. Excellent. Some great answers coming through there. But like I said, you obviously see them on a day-to-day basis, especially in our newspaper headings and things like that. Okay, so everyone happy now before we move on So there are basic classifications, guys. Everyone happy so far? Now, don't forget, I understand there's a good bit of information here, but a little bit of practice, guys, a little bit of practice. And like I said, go back over those toolkit notes, will give you much better understanding. But even after today, small bit of practice. Just going to quickly talk about weights and styles. We should know what these are by now. Most people using a machine will know what they are. But within the majority of and our obliques, okay? Now, italics and obliques, as you can see on your screens in front of you, these are often confused and can be used interchangeably, but they're actually two distinct styles. So I just want to make you aware of this. See, oblique type is simply a slanted version of the regular characters. Okay, so you could even actually create them manually in Photoshop or Illustrator by simply using the distort function. So you can simply distort them to create your oblique. But your italics then are different. They are slanted like your obliques, but they're actually a separate set of characters. Okay, they're actually a specific separate set of characters, each having their own unique forms. So just to make you aware too, guys, italics and obliques are different. Italics will have their own unique letter forms, unique characters. Obliques are simply slanted. It is simple as that. Okay, everyone clear on that? Okay, before we continue, yeah, okay, great. Upper cases and lower cases. Very simple in this. Obviously, our upper cases, they're much stronger. They convey a sense of trustworthiness, of authority. They command more attention. They sort of indicate importance and formality. But they do need more space as well. Just to make you aware that they generally need more space around the letters to be comfortable to read. Now, our lowercase then, obviously much more friendly, much idea. You're getting the idea. What about your second version there then? People ask me what's the second font. It is again Snell that we looked at just a second ago. Okay, classical, jazz, softer, Coldplay. Okay, brilliant. Okay, it's Bach even. Yeah, one of my so like I said, think of cases as volume. They have distinct personalities, so you need to think about the type of message that you are trying to convey. So use them wisely, okay? And make sure they match your message. Okay, match your message. For example, remember in lesson 5 there, we looked at, for example, the Facebook logo. Facebook is all in lowercase. Even the F is in lowercase. Okay, so it looks more friendly, looks more inviting, it's more personal. Simple. Bach major G is the best, says Lama. Indeed, okay, very good. Now, guys, I am not expecting you to understand all of these terms, okay? Not by any means, but these should be in your toolkits as well, guys, so maybe you go over them in your own time. But there's one or two elements of this that I want to make you aware of. And why I want to make you aware of these is because typefaces will share some common characteristics. And if we understand these characteristics, then we can start pairing fonts together. So we can start pairing different ones together from different families. And this is what good designers do. But in order to do this, we need to the ones I want to introduce you to here, pretty straightforward, is our baseline. This is simply the invisible line that all the characters sit on. If you look closely, by the way, though, guys, again, it's all about how it looks visually. You'll notice there may be the lowercase letters. Some of them might drop just ever so slightly below that baseline, just ever so slightly. Sometimes they won't, sometimes they will, just to make you aware of them. It's all about what looks correct to the eye, what's optically correct. That's our baseline. Everything sits on a baseline. Simple as that. Moving up then, we have our median. Now, our median is the height of most of the lowercase characters, okay? But it is generally based on the lowercase x. And this will become important in just about a minute now as well. You'll understand why I'm going through this with you. But this is our median. It's generally based off the lowercase x, and this is where we get the term x height from. We can see it over here on the right-hand side. And finally then, guys, we have the cap height. This is exactly what it sounds like. It's the height of our caps. Simple as that. So it's a distance then between the baseline and the top of our uppercase letters, for example, our T here. So we have baseline, median, and cap height. We just need to be aware of these because our x height then becomes very important to this, all right? And it becomes important in our sizes and our measurements, all right? Okay. Just a second now as well. A second now too. Okay, before I continue on, what's the name of the bottom line? Sorry guys, there's a lot of questions coming through, so if I miss any questions, guys, there's lots of you here, so if I miss any questions, don't forget I will get them at the end of the lesson too, if I do miss any. I'm trying to get through as much as I can now, so if I do miss any, don't worry, we'll have the Q&A afterwards. But anyway guys, before I continue, baseline, median, cap height, and then we have our x height then is based off our lowercase x. This is why this is important, because not all typefaces are created equally. Okay, some can be quite normal, some can be quite wide and fat, some can be quite narrow and thin. So basically, words set in different typefaces can take up a very different amount of space on a page. Okay, I'm going to ask you now, have you ever wondered, for example, Microsoft Word or something like that, you might just change the actual font. Okay, you won't change the size, but all of a sudden it looks like either a lot more or a lot less text. Anybody experience that phenomena where you don't actually change the size, just the actual type, and all of a sudden it can look like a lot less or a lot more? Yeah, okay, you know, like a lot of people experience that. Okay, well, this is why this is important. This is why you need to understand this. Points in an inch. Okay, so in every inch, 6 picas. Okay, and in every pica there are 12 points. So that means then generally, guys, if you set any of your type, the uppercase, if you set it to 72, should be about an inch in height, guys. It is simple as that. Okay, so just to make you aware of that, these are quite fine, minute measurements, as we can imagine. Okay, but we'll get through now why this is important. All right, so this is why it's important. Because here we have our overall font size. So we're going from our decenter line, which is the bottom of our lowest decenter in the font. So it could be our Y or a P here. This is the decenter line. And this is the acenter line. So this is the so like I said, within our acenter, decenter line, our actual x height can vary quite significantly. And this is why some typefaces then that are at the same point size look quite different. Look very different. And this is an example. So here we have, this image basically depicts, now I've enlarged it ever so slightly for display purposes here. But this image depicts all fonts that are set in 14 points in Microsoft Word, actually. Anybody wondering out there? So you can, of course, now these are all the same point size, but you can, of course, see a massive difference there. Am I wrong in that? You can see a difference here straight away. Everyone can see that. Yeah, lots of wows coming through there. So this is why that happens, guys. This is why you get such a significant jump. Now, Janice is asking, is the median and the x height the same size? Okay, well, from your baseline to your median, that is the x height. Okay, but within particular typefaces, that x height can vary. So between your as the x height, and it works off the actual measurement of your actual x, of your actual letter x. Okay, Janice? Well, like I said, they can vary. That is what this whole point is about. All right. Okay, brilliant. What is font size based on? It's based on our points and our picas. So your overall font size, just very quickly before we continue on, your overall font size is of your lower ones here. So for example, the bottom of your Y, your B, or your D center line to your A center line, that is your overall font size. And within that, that's why your X heights can vary. Okay? Okay, great guys. So continuing on. Why it's important. Do we know what our kerning is by now, guys? I think I've referred to it a few times by now, but kerning is simply the adjustment of space between two specific letters. Two specific letters, guys. Try this yourselves, for example. If you type out any word, even in it could be in Photoshop, Illustrator, notice the distance between your letters starts looking off. Okay, it's not optically correct. Okay, so kerning then is where we actually manually move letters either further or further away or closer together, but it's between two specific letters. Between two specific letters. Thank you, Rachel, for that. Very good. Okay, think of it this way. This is the way I simply think of it, guys. If you think of kerning, what you want to do, what you want to achieve, is you want to make it look like there's the same amount of water or fluid, for example, between all of your letters. So once it looks like it contains the same volume or the same amount of water, your kerning will be pretty correct then. So you can imagine if you maybe capital A's and capital W's, for example, they could look very, very far apart. Okay, so you will maybe need to manually adjust then. But it's all about what looks optically correct. What looks correct to your eye, this is what kerning is as well, guys. All right? So is everyone clear on that now, just before we continue? Everyone's clear on that? Yes, yes, yes. Okay. On the other hand then, the difference, just to make you aware, people ask about our tracking. Tracking is different because it is the spacing of a group of characters. Okay? This is tracking. Kerning is simply between two letters. Okay, so pretty straightforward. Tracking is everything. Kerning is just between two. Quick question for everybody out there. Anybody know where the term leading comes from? Print block or lead typesetting, very good, guys. It is called leading, and because lead strips were originally used back in the good old days of metal typesetting to separate lines of type. Okay. So to create or to separate your lines. All right. Okay, so that is all leading is, simply the distance between those baselines then, guys. As a good rule of thumb, by the way, guys, I would generally have my lead 1.25 to 1.5 times the size of my actual font. So if I have, for example, my font set in 12, if I multiply that maybe by 1.5 or 1.25, I'll generally have my leading around sort of 16, maybe 16, 17, okay, depending on. But just make sure there's enough space. Just make sure there's enough space, guys. When we talk about measure then as well, I'll quickly go through these now. The measure, this is simply the length of lines of text in a paragraph or column. Now, you know, some people call it column width, okay, but its measure is the correct term. It is very important because if it's too long our eye gets tired or has to go all the way across and all the way back, and we just get a little bit tired reading it. If it's too narrow, on the other hand, again, we're constantly moving down the line, so again, it doesn't read very well, because they're constantly moving back and forth as well. All right, can lead to hyphenation as well, guys. Just another one that can come in if it's too small. So what I tend to do, a little tip for you guys, you'll see it there. People ask me why is there an alphabet there. Generally speaking, aim for an average line length of between 45 to 90 characters, including spaces. So what I tend to do is I'll maybe type out maybe two alphabets, which will be 52 letters. So generally around that mark, we find the most pleasing for reading. We as humans find this the most pleasing measure for reading. Maybe a little bit more if you want to as well, guys. But I just think that's quite a handy little way. When I'm working, I will generally have that underneath as well, just so to gauge it basically, okay? So just a little tip. Okay, guys. Quickly then, this is more of a web feature, but we'll just make you aware of it, or hierarchy and scale. Obviously our headings are usually large, subheadings are a little bit smaller, and our body type is a little bit smaller still. But we don't just need to define by size, okay? You can define by weight as well. So here we're talking about sort of hierarchy. But you can see there my headings and subheadings are actually the same size. And my body type, a little bit larger, but still smaller than the rest of them. But here I'm using actual value as well. Okay, so I'm using different weights to distinguish as well, guys. But just, get that hierarchy into your designs to create more interest. And of course, it tells the user what's important. So what's important and what's maybe least important. So make sure you understand your hierarchy and scale. And we'll talk about hierarchy in a bit more detail in lesson 8 as well, guys, when we're talking about designing for screen as well. We'll talk about hierarchy in a little bit more detail. But like I said, you can use it with color, you can use it with weight as well, guys. All right. So with all that in mind, we're nearly finished now, just a few minutes left. This was the whole purpose here. With all that in mind, we're going to talk now about combining type. And how we know what typefaces go together. How do you make good type choices? So we're looking for combinations which sort of complement each other and that work in harmony. Faces in a design, it's just going to look all over the place, all right? Little tip as well, you might be better when you're starting off selecting just one typeface that maybe has a large family of variations, like Helvetic and Neue, for example, would be one of my go-tos as well. Huge amount of variations within that. So there's many weights and many widths and thicknesses as well. Okay, but we're going to quickly go through the factors for understanding how to combine type and combine it well. Okay, so quickly now, like most projects, guys, you don't need more than 2 typefaces. Even online now, there's a bit of a tendency, especially in Flash design, for just using one typeface and different weights of it. But a few little tips. With different features may work well together. Choose maybe very opposite ones, one more traditional, one more friendly, okay? And even typefaces then with similar body height can work well together as long as there's contrast as well, guys. But to be honest, the most basic and probably the best and easiest way to combine type is when we use contrast. Now you'll hear me talking a lot about contrast in design as well, guys, but contrast is the simplest way to do it. And I'll give you examples of it now. When I talk about contrast, essentially I'm talking about sort of weight as well, but contrast and mood then as well. So your mood needs to reflect it, okay? So these are a few important principles. And guys, effectively combining typefaces, it's a skill best learned through practice as well. So a little bit of practice and you will experience some trial and error, but trust me, you will get the hang of it after a while. And once you've gone over maybe some of the principles we've covered here, you will have the tools then to try out your own combinations and essentially make educated guesses about what will or will not work together. So contrast is one of the most easiest ones to understand as well. And again, without contrast, typefaces could clash, create maybe a bit of a scattered look to your designs. But contrast is very simple to understand. Very, very simple to understand. Here I've combined 2 typefaces, lots and lots of contrast, just by weight. Simply by weight, okay? is a free font, and I've combined it with Helvetica Neue Light. Alright, so here we have based largely on weight. It's a straightforward way to combine them as well. Alright, I think they look quite well together. Pauline is asking what is the red font. Okay, in my presentation, there is SOU or CE. Sans Pro is the typeface that I'm using in most of my presentations. So my red, my weight here is in that. People will ask me about that. But here you go, guys. Like you can see, it's pretty straightforward. Weight is a great way to mix them up. Would you agree? These go quite. As I said, now this is for demonstration purposes. I would not encourage this, in too much of an extreme, but simply using multiple weights of a single typeface. These will combine effortlessly. They're all from the same family, but you're simply using multiple weights to mix them up then as well. All right. Okay, and then finally, style and decoration. You can again create contrast by using different styles within your typeface. So I'm talking about Helveticas, or not Helveticas, sorry, italics, excuse me, or italics, and using different weights even then within them too. Okay, so style and decoration can be quite a handy way to combine as well, and can be used quite effectively too, guys. Okay, so again, this would be an example of using a typeface with lots of members of the same family. All right. Okay, great. Good stuff, guys. Good stuff. Okay. Few things, like I said, try not to choose typefaces from the same classification, okay? If they're too similar. Because if they're too similar, they look jarring, okay? These are two different typefaces here, guys. We can see it guys, all right? Okay. And what you will do, what it's easily done to, is simply combining typefaces like our sans serif with our serif. All right. Again, these will work very well together. Okay, and might use a nice sans serif then for my body text then as well. But again, just different classifications. Okay, they will generally work quite well together as well. All right, and then finally, structure. Okay, here I'm talking about structure, guys. Okay, for example, we have Crimson Text and Gill Sans. They have quite similar structures in the way their letters, their glyphs, if you will, are made up. So these will work quite well together. And again, this is an example of combining a sans serif with a serif, but overall they will combine quite well. Okay, and again, have a very similar X height. So I know that my lowercase letters will generally work. They're generally in around the same size. They have a very similar X height, so I know they're going to work quite well together. And then finally, guys, a great way to do it is what I call extreme contrast. Okay, so this can be a great option if you're working with maybe script typefaces or maybe some weird display ones. Okay, and this is obviously very, very extreme, but it can be a really good way to combine. All right. Extreme contrast here, so it's Blackadder ITC, which will be on most people's machines as well, guys. Okay, and then finally, mood. Very simply, make sure your mood is correct. Make sure your mood is correct, guys, and it's getting across the message, displaying the message that you want to get across, and that suits, that is complementary to your overall design. Okay, guys, that's nearly it for today. Just going to take a quick sip of water before we continue on now, 1 or 2 points, and then the Q&A. So just be back to you in about 30 seconds. Okay, thanks a million, guys. Like I said, a lot of information there, folks. But what I've done is I'm going to give you sort of 5 takeaway tips. These are sort of 5 rules to become a better typographer. If you take nothing else away from today's lesson, please remember these 5 basic tips than a lot of other people out there. So 5 simple rules. Number 1 is to concentrate on how the body text looks. This is straightforward because your body text is the main amount of text on your page. If this looks good, everything else is going to look good. Okay, it's obviously the main area on your page. Generally, 8 to 10 point size is what we find most comfortable. Again, guys, you will need to adjust. As we've discovered, some will look larger, smaller in your different sizes. So do be prepared. But like I said, make sure it's legible, guys. Simple as that. Number 3. As I said, I operate around the sort of 120 to 150% of the point size. Again, this is up to yourself. You need to let your eye be your guide here a little bit. But like I said, if my body text in maybe 12, I'll generally have my spacing around 16 or so, in around that, guys. So just to make you aware of that. Number 4, remember your line length. Keep it between 45 to 90 characters per line, including spaces. So that's where I use my little alphabet all typed out underneath, or my 2 alphabets. So about 45 to 90 characters, including spaces. Okay, straightforward. And finally, number 5. If and when you can, please use professional fonts. Okay, this is the fastest, easiest and most visible improvement you can make to your typography is to use professional fonts. What I mean by this is don't use your system fonts that came with your computer. Some of them are okay, but if you buy a professional font, it means a professional has set this up for you already. Okay, so it gives you the benefit of sort of using a professional font without hiring that professional, guys. Okay, so if and when you can, there's some nice free ones out there too, don't get me wrong, but generally the ones you pay for, you get what you pay for, guys. Generally the ones you pay for will be slightly better as well, guys, okay? Myfonts.com would be one of the main professional font resources that you will have to pay for. Sometimes they give you some for free as well, depending, but myfonts.com would be quite a nice one, alright? So guys, if you put these, you will notice your documents starting to look a lot better. So, what did we look at today? We looked at what is typography, why it's important, typefaces versus fonts or basic forms, differences between text type and display type. We then looked at of each, so of our serifs and sans serifs, looked at the sort of basic factors for combining type, and we then had our quick recap. Now, for a little assignment for anybody interested or wants to get a bit crazy with their designs, let's have a look at maybe creating a typographic image. What I mean by that, for one, you can actually use the glyphs of your type to create some poster design just actually using the glyphs of your type. It can be quite a nice experiment. So something like you see on the screens in front of you, alright? But a nice thing to do to start off with, maybe select one of your favorite quotes. That could be a line of a song, from a poem. Maybe try to set it in a typeface that is, suitable to that. Okay, if you get me. Maybe, just try to get the message across, make it a bit more suitable. So you can have a lot of fun with that as well, guys. Okay? Too as well, guys, but this is, as I said, something for much more for our advanced students, but just this is where you can go with it. So just to make you aware now, before we continue on in the next lesson, guys, do not forget we will be giving away that very special lifetime membership to Shaw Academy. Basically means access to absolutely everything, every course over here at Shaw Academy. It's an unbelievable prize, guys. So do join us for that. Lots of excitement, Then we're also going to be looking at our elements and principles for the web and for digital and for screen, guys, and understanding how to apply them for web and for digital applications too. Okay, so again, very interesting lesson too. So please join us for that, guys. So we're going to have the Q&A now. Quick reminder, gentle reminder, we do value your feedback. If you rate this webinar, I try to make them better every time. So if you enjoyed tonight's lesson, you know, if that was a good lesson, I'd appreciate a big high five there from everybody out there, guys. Makes me look good over here. So thank you for that. So you will be asked once you leave, please rate the webinar from 5 all the way down to 1, guys. Okay, so from 5 all the way down to 1. Like Helvetica, Helvetica Noi, any of those for your body text, just as long as it's nice and clear, as long as there are separations between your other entities too. Okay, just a second now as well. Fantastic lesson, says Carla. You're more than welcome, Carla. Thanks a million. Sabrina is asking, what are good fonts to use in a poster, flyer, or call card? Again, Sabrina, it's a bit how long is a piece of string. It depends on what the flyer is about or the poster is about. You know, if you want to give a more nice friendly message, maybe some nice large scripts work quite. But as long as your body text is legible. So use those larger display texts, maybe nice, depending if it's maybe a personal thing, maybe a nice sort of handwritten type of font for your headings, maybe something like that. But generally keep your body text, the bulk of your text, in that nice, clear, legible sans serif generally, okay? Even like a nice humanist like we looked at tonight as well. But it simply depends on the message you want to get across as well, guys, okay? Okay. Won't be much different than if it's, you know, financial trading or something like that, guys. Okay, you need to just set the tone and make sure it suits the overall design. Okay. Just a second now. Mary Carroll says, thanks a million, no problem at all. Momoko is asking, thank you for the lesson. What kind of fonts to use for portfolio? Again, I would generally keep them nice and clean and crisp, Momoko. But again, if you want to inject some personality, always keep your body, your larger text simply to read. Okay, so nice, maybe like I said, a nice sans serif. If you want to mix it up and get some of your own personality into it, then you could maybe start using maybe some slab serifs or some scripts, even maybe some handwriting, as long as it's clear to read. So concentrate on your body text, keep it simple. Add your own personality then with maybe your headings and things like that. Again, guys, it depends on the message. Okay, there's no magic bullet for this, guys. Okay. Lama's asking, what about font effects, shade, 3D effect, or stroke? Again, these can look quite good depending on what they're for. I generally tend to avoid things like drop shadow and things like that, Lama. They can look a bit cheap and nasty, to be honest with you, but amateurish. You can get quite nice 3D effects, again, depending on what it's for. They will obviously work better on screen, okay? I would never go applying effects to type if I'm going printing it, because you can get some mixed results from that. But if it's for screen, okay, you can get some nice effects on it. But like I said, I would generally always avoid things like drop shadows and things like that. Strokes can work quite well on those nice, big, heavy slab serifs and things like that. Again, depending on what you want to get across. Need to put the kids to bed. Okay, Carla, no problem at all. Okay. Just a second now as well. Pauline is asking, are there any general rules concerning sizes for print? As it says, Pauline, generally for body text between 8 to 10 points. Sometimes it will get a little bit less. For example, some newspapers might go down to 8. Anything below 8 starts getting a little bit illegible, okay? If you want people to read it in large quantities, definitely don't drop below 8. Okay, but generally between 8 and 12, okay, for generic print. Put it this way, most text you see in a newspaper or magazine every day would generally be in around that 10 point size, 10 to 12 point size, okay? Greet is saying, what about text colors? Do they have big influence in bringing a message? Color. Take care of your colors as well. Tamima is asking, in which lesson will InDesign be used? InDesign is used in lesson 10 next week there, Tamima. Okay, so lesson 10 is InDesign. Again, Premi, yeah, if you look at lesson 6, by the way, guys, we looked at a lot of that too. So don't forget, guys, remember the missed it. Lesson 6, this is lesson 7. Lesson 6 was made available for you there on Friday in your student login, so don't forget to catch that lesson too, guys, as well. Alright. Okay, just a second now. Kaja says, very beneficial lesson. Can't wait for lesson 8. Thank you, Kaja. You're more than welcome. Just a second now. Okay, hang on a second, guys. Lots of them coming through. Just having one or two issues in my question box there. So if I did miss any questions, guys, do apologize. A lot of you there. So some of them I'm just not getting to. But don't forget as well, guys. Simply send through to that this address you see there, the graphic dot design. Can you? Okay, that was can you resize? Answered that one there a second ago. Great class, great teacher. Thanks, Sabrina. You appreciate it there. Nice lesson. Thank you. Mohammed is asking, is there a method to categorize fonts in Adobe programs, for example, serifs and sans serifs? Depending on what you're using, Mohammed, for example, if you're using the most up-to-date ones, you can even do them online with your font selectors, or you can get third-party ones too that will actually even organize those for you. But you can. Thanks, nearly everything. Thanks for the nice lesson, says Lita. No problem at all. Siobhan, thanks a million for that. Great lesson. Siobhan Middleton, great name. Great whiskey too, Siobhan. Anyway, okay. Just a second. Renette is asking, can you get a device that recognizes fonts after being outlined? Okay, Renette, interesting question. As you know, in lesson 5 there, we outlined our fonts so that they would print correctly. Advice for that is always save a copy. Always save a copy of your original, and then save a copy of your one as outlines as well. No, you can sort of step back, Renette, okay? So just to make you aware of that, all right? But like I said, always save a copy, basically, all right? Just a second now as well. Oh, I think, sorry, Paulina was asking the similar question there too, Renette. She meant, I mean, if I don't know which font was used when it was turned in curves, no, once you sort of convert it to curves or convert to outlines, okay, it's not going to recognize it then, Paulina, because then it's essentially made it an image, okay, and it won't be able to recognize, okay? So you're essentially making an image then and it won't be able to pick it up, no. Okay. Okay, just a second now. Gada's asking who I can create or draw my font in Photoshop. Then as well, okay. Anna Lindsay, I missed your question about italic obliques, Anna, so if you can send that through to me again, Anna, thank you very much for that. I think that is nearly it then for this evening, guys. We've ran a little bit over time as well, so I'm conscious not to keep you too late because, you know, we did have our daylight savings and things, guys, so just, you know, I'm conscious of that. Afric Norton, I would like to create my own and import them into my font library. Okay, there are there are some third-party ones out there. There is, I think, is Font Face. If you do a quick Google search, depending if you're on an Apple or on a PC, there'll be different ones for you, but you can create them, and once they're created, you can, of course, import them. A little bit more of an advanced topic there, Afric. We do cover it in our advanced course, but it's generally be a third-party software source. Would be another one, so fontlab.com. If you go there, you can, I think you can actually even get a trial of the software, Afric, so it might be worth having a look, maybe trial it for a few days. Okay, just a second now as well. Anna Lindsay is saying, can you give us visual examples which make the difference between oblique and italic clear, or is it different simply a technical difference which we need to know? And you know, you will be able to see them, Anna. I mean, if you just like the one I had on the screen, I'm not sure if I can get it back there because I've moved forward, but the one I had on my screen was of the same typeface. So I'm not sure if you had something like Helvetica on your machine. Have a look yourselves. You will be able to see the differences, especially in O's, things like that. And if you compare them side by side, you definitely will be able to see them yourselves, okay? Okay, just a second as well. Weeks to mean it, but there's different modules, so it means you can jump in on each separate module. So we have three modules within the advanced course. They run over 3 months, but it means you can sort of jump in on each module as well, guys, okay? Okay, guys, really looking forward. Yeah, guys, okay, don't forget lesson 8, understanding basically a little bit of theory behind how we design for the web and for screen, and we put all that into practice then as well at the lesson afterwards too, guys. But again, we need to understand the main points first, so an interesting lesson on that in lesson 8 now too, guys. Lesson 8, Ruth, about our advanced course as well, so I'll just pay heed to that, share a bit of information about that with you as well, Ruth, too, which should be of benefit to you. Okay, guys, I think that's it for tonight. If I did miss any lessons, or sorry, if I did miss any questions, excuse me, simply send them through to that graphic.design at Shaw Academy there, folks. I'll get back to you as soon as I can, and I'll see you all here for lesson 8. Do not miss it, guys. A very, very important lesson. Very, very important lesson. And like I said, I will see you soon. So this is Kevin, and I